loudest message given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the time of coronavirus pandemic has been that India needs to turn this crisis into an opportunity. And to give wings to this thought, NDA announced Atmanirbhar package. But there are many who say that this package is actually making India look inwards. It has the potential to push India to protectionism. Is this fear of protectionism valid, or is it misplaced? That's what we will find out today on India Revival Mission on Times Network. I'm Hina Gambhir. Joining me on the broadcast is Sunil Alagh, Chairman SKA Advisors. We have with us Mr. Karan Bhasin, Economist and Researcher, Professor Arun Kumar, Senior Economist, and Mr. Prasenjit Bose, who is an economist. Thank you very much, all of you gentlemen, for joining us here on India Revival Mission. Let me begin this discussion with Professor Arun Kumar. Are we actually moving towards protectionism with Atmanirbhar Bharat push?
So, let's look at it historically, from Gandhi to Nehru to 1991 new economic policies. We seem to be coming full circle, but I wouldn't call it protectionism. Yes, we are defending our market, but look at 1991 when the average duties were 160%, compared to now when it's roughly around 15%. So it's not really that, but yes, certainly, more than what it was, say, 3 years back when our budget started increasing tariffs. So we are now in a situation where the economy has been slowing down for the last 10 quarters, and therefore the government is worried how to boost the economy. And this is what it has thought of in the last 3 years, ever since the economy started slowing down. But the cause of that is the growing inequality, the lack of demand, the hit on the unorganized sector. And this Atmanirbhar Bharat package is not going to be able to take care of that. So in a sense, we are caught between various tools. We are not able to take care of the unorganized sector, create demand in the economy so the economy gets a boost. So we are thinking that, okay, by protecting the market, but protecting, market a little bit more is not going to work in the current situation when we have become highly dependent on imports. In 1991, when we started, this process of opening up the economy, our trade, that is exports plus imports to GDP ratio was around 17%. Now it's 40%. In between, it has become more than 50%, So in a sense, we are far different from what it was in 1991 or what it was in 1947. So we cannot simply just do ad hoc things. We have to look at the long term. Why is it that we have lost out? Why is it that China did so well? And there, we have to think of education, research and development. Because those are the things which help you to capture the world market, to enter the world markets. And we have lagged behind in education, we have lagged behind in research and development. So unless we take a long-term view, we are not going to be able to really use it. So Atmanirbharta, has to be viewed in a philosophical context and also in a narrower context. The narrow context is that we start producing everything ourselves. But the wider context is a philosophical context of what do we do? How do we become Atmanirbhar, in the long run context? Not just in the short run that we start producing more of the goods within the economy. And given the consumerism that has spread, people are going to buy the goods that are cheaper coming from outside, whether it be mobile phones, whether it be Ganesh Murti, whether it be Pitkaris or Gulal. So these things, why is it that we have lagged behind in all this? It's because of the research and development, because of education. And our education is lagging far behind, So we have to look at the longer context rather than a narrower context.
Okay, very interesting. Mr. Sunil Alagh, where do you stand in this debate? Because, many believe that the kind of policy measures that are being taken at this point in time have the potential to push us to an era that we saw pre-1991.
No, look, if every step that the government takes is going to be viewed in black and white, this is just one of the many steps. I disagree with Professor Arun Kumar. If this is the only step that the government is taking, then obviously you have to look at the long term. But there are many steps which are being taken to increase exports and to reduce imports. First and foremost, the oil prices have come down, so the prices of the import is dropping. But look, at the end of the day, what is the Prime Minister fundamentally trying to say is that, look, at this point of time, if there are goods that we can produce in India, go ahead and produce it. If you have to import it, please import it. Look, Apple is now coming into India from China and they're going to make it in India. What is the Prime Minister trying to say is let's get into the make in India. He's not against imported brand names. He's not against any of the stuff that everybody's talking about. So there's a misunderstanding there. What is he saying? He's saying let people like Toyota is making the cars in India. Look, Honda is making the cars in India. Hyundai is making it in India. This way, employment will increase, and by all means, get people to make in India is the Atmanirbhar, and also start making products which we were importing earlier because it was cheaper. Fine, it was cheaper. Chinese products were dumped into our markets. And today we are saying, look, the average person is saying, look, why do I have to buy little lights? Why do I have to buy candles from China? Why can't we make it ourselves? And that is all that he's saying. He's not for 1 minute saying don't buy imported brands. And look, the world is moving towards, if you see the next 5 years, every country is looking inwards. Whether it is America, which says make America great, they want you to come to America and make it. That doesn't mean that he's saying no Japanese companies can make it. They're saying don't make it in Mexico, don't make it anywhere, come and make it here because you will give employment here. So for me, this is one of the many steps that he's taking. And Atmanirbhar is not going to happen in 1 year. I mean, I don't know where this concept has come that now, this year itself, everybody is going to start making it. He's encouraging entrepreneurship. It may take 5 years. It may take 10 years. But the whole concept is a great concept. It's one of the many steps that is being taken. And I'm all for it.
Okay. Prasenjit Bose, where do you stand?
See, I think that there are two aspects to it. First of all, this Make in India strategy was unfolded in 2014, immediately after this the Modi government came. And I think that if the data is there for all to see, that India has actually failed, I think, to bring about any kind of transformation in the structure of the economy which can justify any claim of success. Vis-a-vis this Make in India project. We continue to have a very wide trade deficit. We continue to import things which we consume but we cannot manufacture ourselves. And the export successes of India continue to be restricted to sectors which were there even before this government had come.
Okay.
So I think that there was hardly any transformative impact of the Make in India strategy, whatever it was meant to be. Now, from the point of view of this Atmanirbhar package, I think that is more specific to the crisis that we are facing today. Now, as the latest projections from the IMF to the Reserve Bank of India points out, that India has now, it is likely to end this year, this financial year or calendar year, and we are getting converted from one of the fastest growing economies in the world to one of the fastest contracting economies in the world. So this crisis is going to hit India in a very big way. It will have a very serious negative impact.
But isn't that the case with all the economies right now? I mean, barring China, which has exported COVID as well, isn't that the case with everyone?
Let me just make a very quick point over here. There are 2 or 3 major issues, and I think that it's very easy to get conflated and confused with ideological arguments. What we really need is an analytical framework to evaluate what has been done. And I think some of the senior economists on the panel seem to be lacking that analytical rigor when they're looking at this, and they're looking at it all wrong. See, what we did before 1991, we had a capital control regime. We didn't allow foreign capital to come in, and we had a high sort of, duty structure to restrict imports, and that's why import substitution didn't really take off. In contrast, what has been done is that there has been a moderate increase in tariffs while allowing for foreign capital to come in. That's the fundamental difference that we need to look at, because we are inviting foreign capital to come in and set in India, and there are, very limited restrictions on availability of allowing foreign capital to come into the country. The second point that I want to make about is about, so typically when you open your economy, you do a lot of factor market reforms, which are precursors to ensure that, your productivity goes up and that you are able to compete in the international market. In 1991, when we did the liberalization, we did not do factor market reforms. Those reforms have happened only now in 2020 during the Atmanirbhar crisis as a part of the Atmanirbhar package. So with land, labor, and electricity codes coming in, what the government is doing is that it is saying that we're going to enhance the productivity in the domestic economy, and at the same time we're going to provide some sort of protectionism, moderate protectionism, in a time-bound manner, which is for a period of 5 years, so that Indian companies can make use of that protectionism and scale and go to global sort of levels. And I see this strategy working because this strategy has worked. It worked in East Asia, it worked in China. So I don't know why, these guys are saying that this is not going to work. I think that this is exactly what every industrialized country has done, including the US and even the British. That's how they industrialized in the first place. I'm for free trade, but I'm also sort of aware of the fact that free trade does not exist. And I think we need to come out of this ideological bubble and we need to evaluate policies as they are. As far as the question of what Make in India achieved and whether it didn't have an impact or not, well, I would like to state very carefully, and it is very important for the viewers to also understand that India did not have any capacity for manufacturing mobile phones in 2014. That actually happened only after 2014. So it's easy to say that Make in India did not have a structural impact on the economy. Well, yes, because India is a vast economy, diverse economy, but the fact is that it did have an impact on specific sectors. And as far as exports are concerned, probably Dr. Prasenjit would really appreciate the fact that export growth between 2011 and 2019 has been slower than what it was in the previous decade. And that has affected, most economies.
I want to quickly go across to Sunil Alagh to respond to Prasenjit Bose.
Prasenjit I don't want to get into an ideological debate with Prasenjit. He's an economist. I've just done economics honors from Calcutta. And I don't want to get into an ideological debate. Look, 2020 is a year which has changed everything for the whole world. If you're going to live in the past, please do so. I don't want to argue about it. What we have to look at is from now onwards. So if there are suggestions which take the country forward from today onwards, that's what we have to look at, not from 2014 or 2009. Maybe Make in India didn't work at 2014. It doesn't mean it won't work now, because a lot of people that I am meeting today have stopped imports from China, are willing to go in. Entrepreneurs are setting up PPE suits, whether it is those, everything is being set up now because there is an opportunity, as the Prime Minister has said, make the problem into an opportunity. And look, if you look at even this year, nobody is looking at this year anymore. They are looking at the third quarter, which is doing much better than last year. If you take in autos and you take in FMCG, even ordinary biscuits are doing better than last year.
Yes.
So that is what will hold for the future now. Look, you can carry on living in the past, Prasenjit, for all of us. But today, the world has changed. And we have to look forward now. Are there any suggestions for the future? That is what we are looking for, and not whether it's a political discussion on BJP versus CPM or CPI or anyone for that matter. Let's leave ideological stuff aside and only discuss for India, where is India going in the future, and whether this augurs well the September and the fourth quarter and the third quarter for India or not. And we have to think of India alone, not keep comparing ourselves to China. Where we are lagging is perhaps where Vietnam is moving a lot faster. The implementation of the policy of the Prime Minister, that we can question, because we are perhaps missing the opportunity by not moving fast enough like the other Asian countries like Vietnam and Malaysia. That
Yes.
I will agree with you. But come on, we are moving forward now.
Okay. Professor Arun Kumar, do you agree with what Mr. Sunil Alagh has said, that, this is an unprecedented situation and there are opportunities in front of us? The geopolitics has created an opportunity for India because many companies, many countries now want to avoid China because of various reasons. So this is clearly the opportunity, and instead of being pessimistic all the time and see what happened in the past, shouldn't we be looking at what can happen now? Because I was just going through some other set of data. Like, India never used to manufacture an N95 mask before COVID happened. Today we are exporting it.
So you're right, we are facing an unprecedented crisis. The economy is still 30% down compared to last year. If you look at major sectors of the economy like textile, etc., they're still operating at 70%. Airlines, travel, tourism, trade, etc., still much lower. So we're still, really not able to get back to where we were last year. investment is way down. If you look at the RBI data, investment was down 90% in the month of April. It is still down very substantially. And I think that is the real problem. How do we step up investment? Now, foreign investment has been only 5% of the total investment of the economy. So foreign investment is not really the solution. Question is, how do we step up our investment? And if you look at the RBI data for July, consumer confidence is way down, and the investment sentiment is also way down because there's spare capacity. And RBI data shows that there's a large spare capacity. Spare capacity was already very high last year in October. It was 70%. It's fallen further to 50%, So when spare capacity is so high, the internal investment doesn't take place. So we need to boost that. And for that, the government needs to have a plan as to how to boost demand. And especially the unorganized sector, which is 94% of the workforce, when they have facing a large amount of unemployment, naturally demand will be down. So we need to pump in purchasing power. So therefore, what I have been saying is that we need a long-term plan. See, it's not going to happen in the short run, immediate, because the consumer sentiment is down. Investment sentiment is also way down as per the RBI data in the MPC report that has come out recently. So it's not going to happen. And secondly, foreign companies also will come only to a limited extent. Because as was rightly said by Sunil and others, they are going back to their own countries. Everybody wants to shorten the supply chain. So Europeans are saying, bring the capital back. Americans are saying, bring the capital back. So everybody is going to shorten supply chain. So don't expect too much foreign capital to come in immediately. It may not even come in a little while. So I think we need to boost the internal investment sentiment. How do we do that? And that requires capacity utilization to go up, demand to go up. That's the way to go. Unfortunately, the government's package is very small as compared to what it needs to be. If you look at the US, they're going for a 15-20% extra creation of demand in the economy. The Chinese are going for 10 to 11%. We are going for only a 2% package of extra demand for the poor people. So therefore, in a sense, we need to boost demand. Then only the future will look better. Otherwise, we'll be floundering. We'll not be able to step up investment. Then the rate of growth will also not go up. And, the final point I want to make is that for most analysts, we're not going to recover back to 2019 for at least a year or two. It's not going to happen in the next quarter or the next quarter because large amount of services sectors are in trouble. And then the problem of second wave, which is already hitting America and Europe. So the demand for exports from there will come down. And if it hits us, again, there will be lockdowns in various places. That will again set back our industry and services. So therefore, there's a lot of uncertainty. And we need to deal with that uncertainty, So I'm not saying Atmanirbhar Bharat doesn't have things, but Atmanirbhar Bharat needs to have a short-term and a long-term package.
Okay, interesting point of view there. We've discussed the problem as well and the challenges that India has in front right now. Professor Arun Kumar has given his set of solutions probably that India can consider. I want to give 10 seconds each to the other guests as well as to what is it that India can really do at this point in time. Let's begin with Sunil Alagh.
I agree with Arun Kumar on increasing demand, but just saying it is not going to happen. What the government is looking for is some solution. What we have stated are the facts. But look, I have said incentivize spending in tourism, incentivize spending. How do you incentivize spending? Say that you get a tax break if you spend on cars, if you spend on travel, if you spend on staying in a hotel. Give them 25% of that expense off. Maybe it's a bad suggestion, maybe it's a good suggestion, but we have to make suggestions now to increase demand. I was just saying increased demand. I've been saying it ad nauseum for the last 6 months. What the government is saying is that if we gave money in the beginning, when there was a lockdown, they weren't going to spend. So there was no point in giving them the impotence. Now is the time to give it to them. But give up some solutions. All of us have to get together and say, look, these are the solutions, specific solutions, which the government can fund, which the government can use, and that is what is necessary, Professor.
Yes, and in fact, this India Revival Mission is all about finding solutions to get used to this new normal. Yes, Karan Bhasin, what are the solutions that you can suggest to the government in a situation like this?
I slightly disagree with a lot of the people on the panel, and I disagree because I've evaluated the response that India has given, and the response on an average is very similar to the one that other emerging market economies have given. What people are not realizing is that the reason why our growth was slowing before COVID hit us in 2018 was a lot to do with the financial sector, which acted as a constraint. And now the question is that how do we sort of, remove constraints to our growth? See, growth happens on its own. It's a process. Of course, you can ask about a government giving a stimulus or two over here and there, but I really think that government has done its bit in trying to prevent massive bankruptcies that would have been, the norm had it not provided support during the lockdown. Next point that I want to make is that, financial sector has sort of faced its own share of, challenges and problems. The way I look at it, you want to improve the private capital investment, but that's not going to happen unless you restore and repair the balance sheets of both the private sector and the banks. Because banks are the ones who will eventually give the kind of capital needed to, finance fresh projects. So you have to focus on getting private capital from foreign countries, which will come, by the way. I disagree with Professor Arun Kumar. The reasons why it will come is because there are low yields that are going to be there across the world. So, people are going to look for yields and come to India, come to other emerging markets. That's going to be a norm. Rupee is going to appreciate. So that's again something that the RBI needs to take care of and it's looking into. And the second
I think Professor Arun Kumar wants to give a quick response to that. Just 10 seconds, sir. I have very little time left.
So, generating demand is the crucial thing because I think as Sunil also said, demand is way down. It has to be revived. How do you do that? You have to spend a lot more on rural employment guarantee scheme because large number of people migrated there. You have to create an urban guarantee scheme so that the urban poor also begin to have purchasing power. And the government must reformulate the budget because the revenues are way down. Revenues are 50% of what they were earlier. Expenditures are going to be more, so the budget deficit is way out of line, fiscal deficit. So the government must reformulate its budget and see where to get the resources from. Perhaps it will have to float COVID bonds, which the banks can subscribe. Banks have 8 lakh crore of extra liquidity, which they're depositing at reverse repo rate. That can come, then the wealthy can contribute to the COVID bond. Otherwise, your fiscal deficit will balloon to some like 30% of GDP if you increase expenses on one side and the revenues are down. So I think the government needs to be very careful in the coming months to reformulate the budget and redo the policy so that demand can be generated.
Thank you very much, Professor Arun Kumar, Sunil Alagh, Karan Bhasin and Prasenjit Bose for joining us here on India Revival Mission.